right. Well, welcome everyone to our Thursday Facebook expert series. Today, my guest is, let's drum roll. Am I going to get the name right? James Schmachtenberger. I feel like pretty close.
You nailed it.
Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about James before we get into the interview. I think it's going to be a really great one today. One sec. James is the co-founder and CEO of Neurohacker Collective, a company focused on making groundbreaking products for health and well-being through complex system science. The company began with a focus on cognitive products with the launch of Qualia Night and has since developed products to support sleep, longevity, skin, energy, vision, and immunity. I've been wanting to try that vision one, so I'll have to get that next. James was motivated to start Neurohacker Collective by his own personal struggles to withstand the mental and emotional exhaustion common in fast-paced entrepreneurialism. And you live in California, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in the San Diego area.
You're beautiful. Awesome. So we're going to talk today about, title was upgrading your mental energy so you can heal. We're going to talk about nootropics, but yeah, I think we can bounce into other ingredients and other formulas you've come up with over time and why. But you said your first one was the Qualia Mind. You guys may have seen it because Dave Asprey is often advertising about it, talking about it on Instagram and stuff. Is he an investor with you guys now? Is that the story?
No, he's not an investor. He just, over the years we got to know each other and he developed a real respect for what we were doing within research and decided to help start promoting the product.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, tell us about this mind product, first of all. And yeah, that term nootropic gets thrown around a lot. I don't think I even fully understand what it means.
Yeah, well, I guess let's start there because that'll probably make the whole conversation make more sense. So the word nootropic it was a term that was coined by researchers back in, I think it was 1964. And the word itself, if you kind of break down the meaning, what it essentially means is to bend the mind. So another way of thinking about that would be to say to alter or enhance the mind.
Okay.
So a nootropic is essentially any substance that can improve one or more types of cognitive function and slightly looser interpretation, but also could enhance like your sense of self, right? So increasing motivation, confidence, competency,
Hmm.
which aren't necessarily explicitly like a cognitive enhancement, but they're still something that nootropics can have impact around. So yeah, nootropic is really actually a pretty broad category of any kind of substance that can have a benefit. But one of the caveats in the understanding is a benefit without harm.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times you see people taking different kinds of like pharmaceutical psychostimulants, which will give you an increase in focus, but it's going to likely come with quite a bit of harm on the back end, whether it's liver challenges or instability in neurochemistry, et cetera. So something like that wouldn't likely fall into the definition of a nootropic, but anything like, well, caffeine would probably be the most known and commonly used one, where like in high dose, caffeine can have some negative health consequences, but in low dose, generally actually quite good for you and definitely has some cognitive performance boosts. And then there's all kinds of different, botanicals and amino acids and minerals, et cetera, that all have benefit on different aspects of cognitive function that all kind of live within that nootropic world.
Yeah, there's is caffeine in this formula. I think you have a caffeine-free version as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we do have caffeine in Qualia Mind. We use a relatively small amount. We have 90 milligrams. So, for people who aren't used to thinking about it in terms of milligrams, the standard small cup of coffee is usually like 100 to 120 milligrams.
Okay, got
We're
it.
not really using it for the stimulant properties so much as we are for the vasodilating effects, which then helps absorption of all the other nutrients that we have in there. But we also found through our research over time that there's about somewhere between 10 and 15% of the population have sort of a genetic propensity to be sensitive to caffeine. And so we then ended up producing the caffeine free version for anyone who actually has a real sensitivity to it.
Gotcha. I was just curious as you explaining nootropics, there's such a trend now about like ketamine and ayahuasca and all these things, I think you could say they do no harm, or you could potentially say they do harm. What is your thought on that?
Well, yeah. So I mean, if we're looking at the domain of now, we're talking more psychedelics, and I mean, it's one of the most fascinating spaces to me.
Mm,
I I tend to think that the kind of psychedelic renaissance that we're going through as a world right now is going to pretty much fundamentally reshape our understanding of psychiatry over the next, call it 10 to 15 years. Because a lot of things that have been considered to be relatively untreatable are actually able to be addressed very effectively through the right application of psychedelics. Um, I mean, psychedelics, there's a different safety profile depending on which ones you're talking about. Right? There are certain things like psilocybin mushrooms are really quite safe. There's
mm,
no amount that you could take that would actually cause direct physiological harm.
got it.
Now, it doesn't mean that it can't still potentially be harmful, because if someone goes into a deeply altered state and they aren't supported by a practitioner, they might then do something that will harm them. Right? We've all heard
Yes.
stories of somebody, thinking they could fly and jumping off of a building. Um, so I mean, there are still safety factors in terms of like how you handle the administration and the sort of support and management, but generally super safe. Whereas something like ketamine is generally quite safe, but it does have the potential for physiological addiction. And
I didn't
so,
know that. Okay.
factoring how often you use it and what kinds of applications it's used in becomes important so that you don't run the risk of developing addiction.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think psychedelics is just an utterly fascinating area of research, and the fact that it's advancing as much as it is in pretty short time, I think is probably one of the more interesting and promising things towards evolving humanity at large.
Yes, it's really interesting. I'll just get a little personal here that I was going through a separation and divorce in the last couple of years, and that's a real mind f to go through about just what is life, where is my life going, like what are the meaning of things. And I was in a state where I mostly did not use, I used some mild, I would say, nootropics or mood altering things, but I wasn't I felt a little too fragile in that space and time to fully like delve into everything. But I would say in general, I was kind of creating a lot of opening experiences for myself and definitely working with a lot of professionals. And yeah, sometimes I see some of these substances used in a bit more of party context where really it's meant to be in a spiritual setting with a mentor, with a professional. But I think you're right. Like there's so much that can shift about the way you see your life kind of quicker potentially with some of these substances. And for me, I think I had my like shake up in the external world, so that I had to really go deep. And maybe it was a little slower per se, but um, it was still like shaking the snow globe enough that I really came out on the other side with a much different view of life. So yeah, I think that experience has really helped me believe in the power to reshape how we see the world and how we show up in the world in a completely different and more positive way. You're right, that's good for health. It's like what you said, like good for the planet. We have so much like intolerance in this world right now and rigidity. And so yeah, I think you're right, there could be a lot of potential. It's probably nothing we've ever talked about on the show, but I feel like it is something you may be hearing about. And I think it's an area that us in the space are hearing about, and James has been doing some research. So yeah, just our little 2 cents on where this all may be going. Okay, well, let's get back to nootropics and this formula. It's quite a list of ingredients in here.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
don't think we'll get through all of them, but I wondered if you could share some of the maybe more interesting ones that people haven't heard about that you really love in this formula.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, I guess first let's just kind of frame what qualia mind is a little bit, and then we can
Great. Okay.
talk about its makeup. So, mind is a pretty fundamentally different approach to cognitive support than anything that I've come across otherwise. What you mentioned in in my bio that the creation of Neurohacker is oriented around the use of complex system science. And this is something that we've really invested heavily in as not only a way to differentiate the company, but to actually create profoundly more effective products that have a very strong, noticeable subjective effect on your state, while also being good for you on a long-term basis. And so, when you take this sort of complex systems orientation, what's happening there is rather than trying to sort of narrow, in this case, let's say cognitive function down to one or two particular neurotransmitters that we think are going to be good for you, and then trying to ramp those up, that can be beneficial, but it can also be harmful because a lot of
Hmm.
times you see products that will really try to produce much more dopamine, for instance. And though that'll give you more focus and attention, if it's out of balance with the rest of the neurotransmitters, it tends to create other problems like reduction in critical thinking, reductions in empathy. So
Hmm.
with the complex systems approach that we've developed, what we spend an obscene amount of time understanding and mapping out the whole physiological system and understanding what are all of the relevant biomarkers, and not only understanding them in isolation, but understanding how they work together. And that's really key because human physiology doesn't work in isolation. Right? Anything that changes has a whole series of effects on any number of other systems. And so what so we take the time to really understand and map everything out in extreme detail. And then there's a particular orientation towards recognizing the innate brilliance that the human body has and trying to develop formulas to support what the body already does, as opposed to trying to override or change what the body does in some fashion. So the whole orientation with Qualia Mind is not to override or kind of drive up any particular domain as much as it's to bring physiology into homeostasis and then
Hmm.
to increase resilience from a place of homeostasis so that you can respond to the stresses of life more effectively. And rather than trying to increase or decrease any particular biomarkers, this approach sort of supports the body's ability to create more or less of whatever compounds are needed in real time.
Okay, so
So,
it's an adaptogenic kind of idea.
yeah, definitely, it falls along those lines. And so,
Okay.
where mine gets really interesting is that it it's going to have oftentimes slightly different effects depending on the person because it'll depend on what was out of balance to start with, right? So some people will take it and they'll notice dramatically increased processing speed, whereas someone else will take it and they might notice less of that. They're going to notice that all of a sudden they have vastly more motivation, and the things that have been piling up on their desk for months are now just getting handled easily. And
Hmm.
so it is somewhat of an adaptive formula where there are certain common things that almost everyone experiences, but there ends up actually being this pretty broad range of benefits that people get to have as a result of this approach of sort of supporting homeostasis and supporting the body to do what it already does more effectively.
I see that some ingredients here could be kind of considered calming too. Do you feel that people say that as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually one of the things that I get most excited about in terms of testimonials we get. Like, obviously, I love hearing people feeling like they're smarter, faster, more capable, more competent. But a lot of the commentary we get is people saying, "This improved my meditation practice.
Hmm.
I'm able to be more present, more mindful." We actually get a lot of people writing in about noticing improvements in their relationships and their relationship skills, right? Like that they're less reactive,
Wow, that's a big one.
get
You can
better
tell I must need that one because I'm like, can I have that, please?
I mean, who doesn't need that, right?
Yeah,
No matter
I
how
mean, it's
much
the
we've
worst
invested.
feeling to get like into a trigger and, being reactive. It's like the worst feeling. So, wow, that's super interesting.
I mean, I think
Um,
the whole goal of health optimization is to increase our sovereignty, right? It's to
mm,
increase our ability to actually consciously make the choices that we want. And if we're driven into trigger, we're no longer in a place of having full conscious control.
100%. Yeah, I'm kind of learning. I just have to kind of put myself in timeout until that passes, which can take a
Which is
while.
great practice. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't learned that part yet. And so
Yeah,
it comes
yeah.
out.
And I'll get back to the formula. I just wanted to share too in my own evolution. Like this year, I've decided not to do any drinking or any like kind of party mind altering substances because I really want to within my own capacity, and something like this I wouldn't put in that category, but I want to within my own capacity be able to handle my own emotions and environments. But yeah, something like this, I really appreciate you explaining this because I think I started taking it and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to feel like? What's going on here? So that kind of helps. You feel like it's something that builds over time, like it takes a few weeks to notice. What do you think?
Well, it sort of depends on which effects. So there are certain
Okay.
things that most people end up feeling almost immediately after taking it, or let's say an hour afterwards, because it takes time for the capsule to break down and be absorbed. But I would say from what we've seen, good like 85 to 90% of people on the first day start to notice things like feeling more alert, feeling a better clarity of thinking. Um, there's usually an increase in things like processing speed and digit span, which is like how, you know, if you need to remember a set of numbers, how many numbers can you remember without having to go back to it? So there's some of these things that people start to notice right away, as well as usually increases in motivation. And then there are other things that tend to take a few weeks. So like a lot of the improvements that people report around memory, both like short-term or long-term memory, are things that generally people start to report more after like 3 or 4 weeks.
Mm.
And part of that just has to do with some of the compounds need a little bit of time to work in physiology before the effects fully show up. But a lot of it you actually do experience right away. And that's one of the things that's really unique here is, most cognitive supplements, if you like, they'll even say on the bottle, like, we'll start to notice effects after 4 to 8 weeks. And then the effects that you notice are relatively mild,
Mm.
oftentimes.
Mm.
And here it's usually not a particularly mild experience. It's usually quite noticeable. And like, there is a meaningful boost in energy and alertness and just overall sense of capacity.
Okay, awesome. Well, you're definitely motivating me to get on it again. It's 7 capsules, which is, is like a
Yeah.
commitment. Do you think, like, I weigh 100 pounds? Do you think I still need 7 capsules or not?
Potentially not. So I
Okay.
mean, 7 capsules is like the standard recommended dose, and that's based on sort of average size and weight, which is sort of like the 150, 160 pound range. But it's also a function of metabolism and just a number of different aspects of individual physiology. So our recommendation is always find the right dose. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, I have a number of friends that are very, very sensitive, and 1 or 2 capsules gives them everything they're looking for, and more than that is actually more than they can handle. Then I
Interesting.
also have
Okay.
like huge bodybuilder friends that take 12 capsules,
Oh, wow.
because they're just burning so much energy spending 5 hours a day in the gym that's sort of what their need is. So 7 is like appropriate dose for most people, but we always recommend people kind of exploring up and down to find what the actual right point is.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start taking it like on its own, the 7, and see what happens. My business coach, I want to talk more about the entrepreneurship thing. My business coach has one that I think is more of the rocket fuel version. You said it's like just slams your dopamine. So it's not something I would use every day. But I enjoy experimenting with all the things that are out there. A couple ingredients in here I noticed. You probably know Datis Karazian because he's in your area and
Yeah. I
definitely in
mean,
the
we don't know
brain
each other
health.
well, but we've definitely crossed paths, and he's an impressive guy.
He's so much is yeah. So he talks a lot about healing the brain and circulation to the brain. So a few of these ingredients are ones that he recommends. I think many of my people in my audience are recovering their brain health after mold exposure. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of these things you're describing, they aren't just like average with memory, and they're below average. So they may really enjoy trying this. Many of our clients are sensitive as well.
Well,
So
actually,
this,
on
go
that
ahead.
point, this is one of the areas that I have had a lot of benefit using nootropics and particularly mind. So, you know, if someone's dealing with, let's say, a large amount of mold or heavy metals or something like that, there's all kinds of protocols they need to be able to follow in order to actually go through that detox. And there's lifestyle changes, diet changes, etc. But as you know, a lot of times when somebody's in that state, it's so hard to muster up the energy to actually do the things that are needed.
Yeah.
And so that's actually one of the applications of something like this that I've found a lot of benefit around is the boost that you get from taking the right kinds of nootropics can not only help with cognition directly and help with healing certain aspects of the brain, but it can give you enough of the energy and clarity to actually make the other lifestyle changes so that your overall physiology gets better. So like in my case, I didn't
Yeah.
have, well, I have dealt with some mold and some heavy metal issues, but my sort of major issue was more adrenal related.
Mm.
And, fairly young in my career, I burned out really badly. Got diagnosed with adrenal failure. My memory was shot. I was working on things I absolutely loved and was passionate about, but still couldn't get the energy up to want to do them. Um,
Mm.
and there was a lot that I needed to do to heal that. Nootropics was part of it, but nootropics was also sort of a lever point because they gave me the capacity to do the dietary changes and get a consistent sleep schedule and improve sleep hygiene and all of those other things. And so I think that's a really key area that people don't necessarily pay attention to enough. But using nootropics not only for their direct benefit, but their ability to give you the energy necessary to make the other changes is really key.
That's a great point. Yeah, we're just getting to know each other, but I just wrote this book about mold, and then I'm holding it. I'm like, how the hell are these people getting this book? This
Right.
is like a giant book. I mean, I think you can go little by little, and we have an audio version coming out. But yeah, it's just a challenging time, and I'm still glad I wrote it, but the truth is some people won't really be able to really read it right now. But using some of your products, and you have more products in the line we can talk about, that's a great point. Just being able to keep track of your supplement schedule, keep track of when I was my sickest, I would literally I remember one time I lost my phone in a drawer where I kept tea
Right.
for like 45 minutes and I had an important call, so that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with when you're really sick. So, okay, well, that's really helpful. Oh, I want to talk about the entrepreneurship. So it's
Yeah.
interesting you mentioned that. Yeah, I've also been an entrepreneur for some years, but I used to be in a clinic. So it was easier to stay focused because there was somebody right in front of me. And then I started working from home about 4 years ago, but I go to coffee shops and then I do different things. And then it was COVID. And it got even harder to stay focused at home. And it's not like I'll just watch TV or do the laundry, but I'm just like scattered, I find sometimes.
Right.
And I think until my new coach mentioned that, this is an entrepreneur's challenge, I was like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Right.
Isn't it funny how we think something only happens to us? It's so silly. But
It's
yeah,
really
it's
a
it's
phenomenon because yes, we all think we're somehow uniquely broken in ways that the rest of the world isn't. When
totally broken. I was like, what's my problem? Why can't I focus? So to
right.
hear him say that and that we need like a boost, and yeah, I have a lot of friends making supplements. I've tried a few brands. I think it can happen for entrepreneurs, but just people working from home, which is a lot of people now. I think busy moms have a hard time focusing because they have so much going on. I wonder some of the types of people and feedback you hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is definitely like a very common topic and challenge right now, right? Since
Okay.
COVID, so much of the world has pivoted to remote work. And, for some people, it's very easy to be at home and stay motivated, but not for most. And
Mm,
so, like, I'm constantly hearing from people who are struggling to be able to stay on course with less oversight, or if you're an entrepreneur, there's no oversight because you're the boss, right? So like it's definitely a real challenge, and I think it's definitely an area that nootropics can play a very significant role, right? Because they can definitely support with things like focus and things like motivation. Um, but there are other things that are worth exploring as well. Like, you know, even in the best of scenarios, most people are going to have some periods where it's really hard to be able to focus in general, or at least on certain kinds of work. And so, rather than just trying to kind of push through and force something to happen, that can work, but oftentimes it actually creates sort of like an internal rebellion where you just want to slack off even more. And so, what I find is looking at practices for creating a short term state change is a great way to then be able to get yourself back into a mode of motivation. And so that can be something like pausing and meditating for 3 to 5 minutes. It can be using breath work. For me, I do the cold plunge.
Mm.
If I'm kind of having a midday lull in energy and I can't focus, I go out to my backyard and I hop in the cold plunge for 2 minutes, and all of a sudden, all the energy's
Yeah, I
back.
bet. I bet you're woken up after that.
Yeah, very much so. And like, people can find what practices work for them. Oftentimes, I find that doing something that's like creative and inspiring, even for like 5 minutes, can be enough to kind of change the state that your mind is operating in and make it easier to then get into the mode that you're looking for. So, like, sometimes I'll pause and play guitar and sing for a few minutes. Um, but I think it's what practices work are somewhat unique to each person. But rather than just trying to like power through a really strong level of resistance, I tend to think that it's a lot better to actually give yourself a few minutes to pause, do something to shift into a different state that usually gives you enough sort of energy and clarity to then drop back into what you were trying to do. And,
Mm.
you know, taking 5 minutes to do that usually ends up being the most efficient use of time. Because if I've got to focus hard on something for 2 hours, but I'm in a state where really I can only focus at like 60% versus, I take 5 minutes and now I can focus at 90%, I'm actually going to get way more done in that remaining hour and 55 minutes.
Right. Then if you're dragging and your brain is barely on, it's a great point. I'm glad we're talking about it because I think we do need to give value to those little things. And some people who are working at home may be already finding those. And like you said, we all have our own. I think I try to think of my day in like chunks. And I'm like, okay, I have this coffee shop chunk. And then I'm gonna focus really hard, and then I'm gonna come home and have a little lunch. And I like to sometimes watch Netflix for like 20 minutes or even 5 or 10 minutes, and it's just a laugh and like get my brain into something else. It's
Right.
sometimes nice. I do definitely meditate at lunch. I tend to find I'm like so tight. I like super like tight during my workday. So just having a time to like, okay, like stretch out a bit, like start breathing again, taking a little walk, I think drinking water is simple, but that can kind of shift things. Essential oils can shift things. So you're right. There's a lot of tools.
Yeah.
It's just like finding all of them, you know, knowing when to apply them. That can make a big difference in your day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think self-experimenting is really important because there's a lot of phenomenal tools out there. And for the most part, they're all going to be beneficial for most people, but some are going to be more resonant with you than other things. So experimenting with different tools and finding what works is really important. But then also recognizing, like, I guess, trying to maybe let go of the need for instant gratification a little bit. Sometimes we try out a tool, and if it doesn't completely change our world in 5 minutes, we think that it's not valuable. And
Mm,
that's not often true. At a lot of practices, you might feel some benefit initially, but a lot of the benefit comes with consistency. And
mm-hmm.
after a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're like, wow, this made a huge difference. But you only get there if you're actually willing to follow the practice through long enough to actually have that benefit.
That's true. I think that's true for me with meditation. Especially when you're getting into it, it can seem like this isn't working. This is boring. I should be using this time for something else. I think when you start to do it regularly, you start to crave it, and you're
Right.
like, oh, that time is like just such a nice reset for me. I actually want to do it. So, um, yeah, I love that idea. Well, let's talk about some of your other products. I was saying that. A favorite for me is this Qualia Night.
Mm.
I remember the first time I took it, lots of dreams. I'm sure you hear that quite a bit. I want to ask more about that, but do you want to give an overview of this product as well?
Yeah. So Qualia Night is, I would say, probably my personal favorite product that we've made at this point. As a serial entrepreneur, I've definitely struggled with sleep, and this has made a massive difference in my quality of sleep and as a result, quality of life. So what we're doing here, it's quite different than other sleep products. Most sleep products on the market are some form of sedative, and this is true both of like pharmaceuticals as well as natural products. So they're usually something you take right before bed, and the point is to knock you out. And sometimes that is absolutely what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
usually,
true.
what happens with most sedatives is you're unconscious, but it doesn't actually do anything to improve sleep quality. So you technically asleep, but you're not necessarily waking up more rested. And so the
Mm.
whole intent with creating this product was how do we actually improve sleep quality and support the circadian rhythms so that you get improved things like REM sleep, improved delta sleep, and actually get the recovery that's supposed to come from sleep. And so, interestingly, there's actually no sedatives in there at all. And unlike most sleep products, rather than taking it right before bed, this one is usually taken a few hours before bed around dinner time. Yeah. And this one tends to take a handful of days to maybe a couple of weeks before people really start to fully notice the effects. But then what you tend to start to notice is meaningful improvements in sleep quality, waking up feeling more rested. And a lot of what we're trying to do with this product, in addition to supporting sleep directly, is helping next day cognitive performance. So it's
Hmm.
specifically helping the brain to be able to do the rest and repair that's needed to be able to function optimally in the following day. But for me, I've used the Aura Ring for a few years now for tracking sleep. And I noticed in myself, anyways, when I started taking this product, there was over a 30% increase in both Delta and REM sleep,
Hmm.
which then translated to a huge quality of life difference the next day.
Yeah, I saw a nurse practitioner recently. I'm going through this crunch with, promoting a book and some other things. And, I was just tired. I was just going through a lot of fatigue. And I talked to her, and she was like, I have some testing has shown I have low cortisol in the morning. And she's like, be doing a sleep aid every night because the better you sleep, the better you're going to wake up with energy for your day. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's like such a simple concept. I'm not opposed to sleep aids. I think some people actually are natural sleep aids, but I wouldn't use them like every day because I thought, oh, that's kind of cheating or whatever. Like I should be able to sleep on my own. But I thought her point was really valid, and I've been doing it since then. So yeah, you say to take this 5 days on and 2 days off, which is interesting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we actually say that with almost all of our products.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, that actually should be the case with almost all supplementation. A lot of times that's not what is promoted because I think a lot of times companies are trying to focus on the most simplistic version of directions. But if you take the exact same thing every single day, for a lot of substances, your body does start to develop some degree of tolerance to them and you don't actually get as much benefit. So there's a need for the body to have a little bit of a break. And if you kind of look at how human physiology developed, like now we live in a world where we can have the exact same thing anytime we want it, but that's not actually how the world worked for most of time. Right? You would, when we were in like hunter gatherer phase, you would eat whatever was available, and then as seasons change, that wouldn't be available, and there'd be something else. And so, what we're actually physiologically adapted to is a rotation of nutrients. And that's why when you start to have consistency of the exact same one, oftentimes they become less effective. So, and the more potent something is, the more relevant that is. And so, particularly with our products where they tend to be very potent, the recommendation is take them 5 days a week, give your body a break, and that way you continue to get the maximum benefit and don't develop tolerance.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's general. So yeah, just to backtrack, I would say this is a product that I noticed right away.
Mhm.
The mind, not as much, which was you were describing other people do. So this one, I was like, whoa, really? Which I love a supplement that just shows you it's doing something. Like I just think that's so awesome. So yeah, I bought some for my manager on my team too, probably because I stressed her out. Like, let me help her get a good night's sleep at least. So let's take a look at your website. I can share screen. You've got a few other products. I think there's like a coupon code off your first order. We seem to have a special link, but I don't know. Maybe you can walk me through it. Let's show you. So this popped up, but I think this is maybe a special kind of discount page as well for our what tell us about this.
Yeah. So here you're getting to see the full product lineup. Qualia Mind, Life, and Night are sort of our three most popular products: cognition, longevity, and sleep. But as you were saying earlier, we've got products for supporting improved vision, for increasing skin health, right? Supporting things like skin elasticity and hydration and collagen remodeling. So we've got a number of different products. And with all of them, people have the choice of doing a one-time purchase or going onto a subscription. The majority of our customers do end up choosing the subscription because they have so much benefit they just want to stay on, and there's discounts provided. So the 50% that you saw initially is the discount that you get on the first month of subscription. And then I believe we have a coupon code for your listeners that'll give an additional percentage off of whatever prices are listed on the website. Uh,
Okay.
and so they can just go directly to the website, order whichever items they want, and then input your coupon code, and that'll give an additional, I believe, 15% off.
Okay, let me go take a look. I didn't look at everything super carefully before we came on, but I think we have an affiliate link for you guys from you guys. But yeah, I'll go check um, and see what else we got from you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
there should
life.
be a link that works, and then there's also a coupon code if that's easier for people. I don't
Oh,
remember
you know
offhand what
what?
coupon
There's a
code we
link.
created for you, though.
Let me put something in the cart and see if that gives like a discount from putting in the cart. Do you think that's possible? From the from for the affiliate thing?
Yeah, it could be. And I'm happy to get the find the coupon code, and so we can post it in the comments as well.
Okay. Yeah,
So my
let's
team set it up. I just don't remember what the actual code itself ended up being.
yeah, it may be on an email that it's not in front of me. So yeah, we'll check it out. Yeah, I think the life product looks really interesting. You know, I respect you and that you you as if someone who's formulating her own supplements now. You know, to put expensive ingredients in does drive up the price, but you can't really avoid it. And it seems like you really had like a no holes barred attitude with what you wanted in your
Right.
formulas. Is that right?
That was always my goal. Like, there's a lot of good products out there. My goal was, how do we create something that is life changing? And also, doing that in a way that's totally safe and fits within a regulatory framework. And so, in order to do that, you're right. We're using a pretty large number of ingredients. We're using usually the very most expensive version of whatever ingredient exists because we have a very heavy focus on things like bioavailability. So our products are more expensive than a lot of them. They're higher capsule count, but they're also going to make a much bigger difference in most things. And that's really the goal. So, it may not be for everybody, but people who are looking for that sort of absolute cutting edge that want, the sharpest cognitive capacity, the best sleep performance, maximum longevity, like that's really who we're designing for. And over
Gotcha.
time, my hope is to be able to make them progressively less expensive and more accessible. Um, but you know, as it is, they're for what is here, they're actually pretty inexpensive. And what we find a lot of customers end up doing is because the products are so comprehensive, it often ends up replacing other things that they would have needed to take. So
Right.
that also ends up from like a holistic perspective, bringing the price down because, sometimes you can cut out things like a multivitamin or multi-mineral or certain things that are already encompassed. Uh, And it
Yeah, a
also
lot of
makes
B
it easier to
vitamins.
have a thing that you're taking as opposed to, you know, trying to take 28 different supplements individually.
Yeah. So this focus is quite a bit cheaper. So is this a little bit more like the mind is more adaptogenic, lots of systems, and this is a little bit more like just for focus, would you say?
Yeah, yeah. So they're,
Okay.
I mean, they're pretty similar in certain ways, and then there are key differences. So Qualia Mind is like the most comprehensive product that's going to address many different types of brain function, both short term and long term. With Qualia Focus, to make something that was more affordable and more accessible, what we did there was put most of the attention on near term benefits. And so some of the ingredients that are geared more towards like supporting better blood flow to the brain over duration or helping neuron development. Those things we kind of pared back and focused all of it on being able to maximize what you're going to feel in real time. So a lot of that is focus, attention, clarity, processing speed. Those are a lot of things we're trying to optimize for with Quality Focus.
Awesome. Yeah, and this vision one is pretty affordable too. I think that's really becoming a problem with people on screens
Right.
so much. So, yeah, I have a friend who has a focus product and it has some vision components in it. And skin sounds awesome. I'm always
Yeah.
curious about like cutting edge skin products. So,
This is
huh.
our newest product, and it's been getting a lot of really exciting attention because, it's, again, it's just a very different approach. Most things that people do for skin are done from a topical application, and there can be a lot of benefit from that. But so much of skin health is a result of nutrition. And so being able to provide the right nutrients that allow for the body to create more hydration, more elasticity, ends up having a very significant effect. I've talked to a number of friends who started taking it and they're like, I just don't wear makeup anymore. Like my skin
Awesome.
glows enough and I don't feel a need for it. It's just a great thing to hear.
Yeah, I sort of like when people talk about celebrities looking so good. I'm like, yeah, they're hydrating, they're having their smoothies. You can't fake all that stuff.
Right.
You've got to do it from the inside out. Well, thank you so much, Jason. I've kept you quite a while, or I'm sorry, James. I've kept you for quite a while, so thank you. Just really interesting company. I really appreciate what you're doing in the space.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yeah, likewise. It's always a nice way to get to know each other. It's just like pick your brain for 45 minutes. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, thanks for everyone to be on. We're having a break next week because the master class is live. So I'm going to catch my breath. If you haven't signed up for the Toxic Mold Masterclass, we'll put that link in the notes with this episode as well. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thank you.
Good night, James.